budget and budget priorities. Nikki Lee, our budget director, will handle that. Then we are really wanting to review two things. One is the city's budget priorities for the year. We will be working as a governing body on those budget priorities tomorrow evening for discussion and for vote on the following Tuesday, May 19th. So those budget priorities and your feedback on them are very important. Other than that, we are leaving it wide open for you to give us, both the staff and the governing body, any input that you want about things that you think we should consider about the budget for next year, do, not do, whatever you choose. So with that, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to give you all a general idea of who is here. We have, with this, starting with the mayor, would you please introduce yourselves?
Larry Wolgast, Mayor.
Jonathan Shum, District 4.
Michelle De La Isla, District 5.
Brendan Jensen, District 6.
Sandra Clear, District 2.
Jeff Cohen, District 8.
Nikki Lee, Budget Manager.
Jim Colson, City Manager.
Thank you. We also have here in the audience department heads from, I think, every department in the city. Would you all raise your hands, those of you who are department heads? These folks are here to hear your input as it comes in and also to be available to you. When you take the mic, if you have questions, we'll see what we can do to answer them on the spot. Otherwise, all of these department heads, as well as all of us who are able to stay, will be here when this session closes, and you can visit or ask those questions privately if for some reason there is something that you don't want to state in front of the whole group. With that, I would like to hand off to the mayor to see if the mayor would like to make any opening remarks for us about this evening's session.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Welcome. I certainly look forward to hearing from the citizens, the comments, the views. All the information that you provide is helpful to us as we begin the budgeting process, establish the priorities for the city. It's an important process, and since this is the kickoff tonight, look forward to it.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager Jim Colson,
Thank you,
comments?
Deputy Mayor. So as we're continuing to build a budget for recommendation to council, at least in the early stages, our goal is to understand and be respectful of the impacts of the decisions that this body makes on the citizens of this community. And we know that people certainly don't want to see taxes increase. We're trying to come back to this body with the best balanced budget that understands delivering a high level of customer service and service delivery to the community, but at the same time recognizing that we need to do it in the most cost-efficient manner. So as we continue to work on this, those are the philosophies that we continue to work with.
Thank you. What we're going to do now then is to kick off a little bit of background from Budget Manager Nikki Lee. Nikki, you're on. Uh-oh. Do I need to move out of the way? I think I'm on camera.
Thank you, everybody, for attending and watching on TV. Before we get started into public comments and questions, really wanted to start off with just a brief education of the budget and of the budget process. So tonight is the first of several scheduled public engagement events. There's also going to be another one tomorrow at 11 in the same location. So just to start off, what is a budget? We always like to remind people that a budget is a plan. Here in Kansas, we are required by the state to authorize our next year's budget by August 25th of the prior year, which is really why we start talking about budget this early, because it takes several months to develop it, and then we must adopt it by a certain date. Some key definitions that we talk about repeatedly whenever we discuss the budget. Revenues would be your sources of income that governments use to provide the services. For example, this would be taxes, this would be sales taxes, fees for water, that kind of a thing. Expenditures are, of course, the act of spending those revenues. And then a fund is a very important item to talk about. Really, that's a self-balancing set of accounts, meaning it's really its own checking account within the city. We actually have 30 to 40 funds that we operate at any given moment that we all must set budgets for. One fund that we talk about a lot of the time is the general fund. The main reason is that this is the fund that's primarily supported by property tax and sales taxes, and it's the fund that provides most of the general services that really everyone from Topeka benefits from. This here gives a layout of what percentage of the general fund goes to each of our different areas. For example, public safety is 73% of our general fund. Infrastructure is 9%. Recreation and leisure, 5%. Internal services, also 5%. Courts and legal at 4%. Community development at 2%. And city governance at 2%. Even though we talk a lot about the general fund, it's really important to keep in mind that it really only makes up about 35% of our total budget. Our total budget for the whole city is about $256 million. So when we talk about the 2016 proposed budget, we'll be talking about all of these other funds that we've talked about tonight. A little bit more on the general fund to give you an idea of where we're at today. At the end of 2013, there was a year-end balance of about 11.84%. And the target was set to meet a 15% balance. And at the end of 14, these are unaudited figures at this point, we're a little bit over 20%, so we've met and exceeded that goal. A little bit more about all of our funds, and these are defined, all of them are on our website and also within our budget documents and also our annual CAFR statement. We have special revenue funds. These are funds for specific items such as the citywide half-cent sales tax. We have a downtown business improvement district for which we have revenues that must only be used for those specific purposes and spent out of these certain funds. We have a debt service fund. This is where we pay all of our principal and interest payments for anything that we are borrowing for, usually for capital projects, and this is partially supported by property tax. Enterprise funds would be our utilities, so our water, our wastewater, our stormwater, and then our parking. And the idea here is that revenues come from people that actually use those services and then must be spent to provide those services back to the users. Internal service funds are funds that we use to account for services that we provide ourselves. For example, we have a fleet fund, we have an information technology fund where we charge our own departments to pay into that fund so we can accurately account for how much those services cost us. And then capital project funds, those are the funds for which we pay for our capital improvement projects, which are adopted in the annual capital improvement plan. A little bit more context as we get into the 2016 budget. As you know, everyone really across the country is still feeling the impacts of the Great Recession. Here in Topeka, what we've been saying is that better than we've been for the past few years, but still not quite where we were at pre-recession. For example, with unemployment, we peaked at 7.9% in 2010, and in 2015 are at 4.8%. The median household income in 2013 was $50,369, which was better than 2012, but still not quite to where we were in 2008. And then also employment has been rising. So the message here is that we're doing better, but we're still having cautious optimism to where we're at with the whole city economy. The four main revenue sources that we talked about in the general fund, as we mentioned before, would be property tax, sales tax, and franchise fees. So of our top four main revenue sources, three of them are very sensitive to what's going on in the economy. Your property tax is driven off your market values. So not only your own homes, but any kind of businesses, any kind of new construction. Sales tax, of course, is based on really consumer spending habits. So if people aren't spending, then we get less income as a city. And then franchise fees, that's the tax that's based on your amount of usage for your electric, your gas, your cable, those kinds of utilities. And of course, that's very dependent on the weather, very dependent on the economy, and also on the rates that those different companies set. A little bit on where we are now, coming out of all these coming out of the recession, we as a city are focusing on building fiscal sustainability. At the same time, we're still having ongoing expenditure management. We're investing resources into targeted priorities, so where possible and where necessary, we're able at this point to reallocate dollars that we have in certain areas and really address the needs that are needed at the time. And also, our overall debt burden has decreased. So as we look into the 2016 budget, as was mentioned before, we are projecting a small growth in revenues. We are having rising expenditures, just like everybody's household budgets. For some things you can't control, some which you can control. Things like employee costs, things like electric and gas, deferred maintenance. And also with the 16 budget, we're hoping to make targeted expenditure reductions and enhancements based on the budget priorities. The 2015 budget priorities, which were adopted by the council, were continuing a commitment to developing neighborhoods, continuing a commitment to public safety, establishing fiscal sustainability by building the general fund balance, and investing in infrastructure. As was mentioned, these items will be discussed at the council meeting tomorrow night to talk about what priorities, if any of these should be changed, if any of these should be maintained for 2016 budget, and then voted on the 19th of May. This is just a quick shot of our calendar. It's also on the budget website, topeka.org/budget, where you can see all of the dates that are lined out. Once you get into June, that's really when we'll have a proposed budget available for the council and for the public to view what's actually in the 2016 budget and what's being proposed. And then really for the next few months is when really it's discussed, questions come up, and we continue to be seeking input on those budgets, with the ultimate goal of adopting the budget in before August 25th. So other than having tonight, receiving the public comments, we have a few other ways people can give input. One method is if any given point you'd like to give input about the budget, you're always welcome to contact your council member, contact the mayor, or contact the budget office and give us any kinds of comments you'd like on the budget. For the next week, so until May 18th, we have opened up an online poll, and these links are available on our website, on Facebook page, on Twitter. It's pollev.com/City of Topeka. And we are asking that you indicate which of the following items should receive more resources in the 2016 budget. This has been open since the beginning of today, so there's already been votes on there. So we really encourage everybody to get on there and indicate which of these areas that you would target resources at for the city. And then this will be used to inform everybody as we start to form 2016 budget priorities. In addition to this, for people that are at the in-person meetings, we do have a few in the back of the room. After the meeting, we have a few posters where you can indicate in person, if you don't want to do one online, where you'd put your different resources within the city budget. So with that, I will turn it over.
Thank you, Nikki. Moving right along then, it is time for public comment. And we've got a pretty manageable sized group here. I think most of you are familiar with our routines at the city where there is a little buzzer and all that limits people to 4 minutes. I am not going to have you on the clock, but we do appreciate if you'd keep your comments short and concise so that we can move along and let the next person speak as well. Nikki had some sign-in sheets when people came in. And various people did check off that they would like to speak. I am going to go through that list first. When those people have all spoken, if there is anyone else that wanted to speak as well that for some reason didn't sign up, I will open it up and make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. With that, the first person we have, and we've got a microphone, is the plan that they would come to the mic at the podium here. Thank you. Mark Galbraith.
Thank you. Good evening. And thank you for this opportunity to visit with you tonight about Topeka's city budget priorities. I do appreciate that. My name is Mark Galbraith again, and I'm the president of the Elmhurst Neighborhood Association. I'm also chair of something called the Code Compliance Committee of the Topeka Neighborhood Task Force. And the task force actually came out of a neighborhood summit that was hosted by the mayor and by the city manager just about 2 years ago now. And again, out of that was created the task force, and one of the committees, the task force, is the Code Compliance Committee. I'm not here speaking on behalf of any of those groups. I'm just here speaking on my own, but certainly most of what I'm going to say has been informed by my work with all of those groups over a number of years. And I think it would be fair to say that a good number of the people involved in those groups, a majority I would think, maybe a lot more, would probably agree with most of what I'm going to say. And that pretty simply is to speak in favor of some recommendations coming out of the new Department of Neighborhood Relations. I don't know if you've actually seen these or are not aware it is exactly in the budget process, but it's my understanding that that department is going to propose to you budget increases for a number of items, and including 2 new code compliance officers. And I know that the city approved funding for 2 new code compliance officers last year. But that brought us up to 8 code compliance officers, and we were at that point still too short of 10, which is where we were before 2008 and the housing bubble burst and the economy began to sink. And like most cities, our revenues were cut, and we had to make reductions, including reductions in staff. And we were down to 6 code compliance officers. So this would bring us back up to 10, where we were in 2008. And I think that's necessary. I think we could easily justify more code compliance officers. Recently, I heard that in Topeka, that about 20% of our housing stock, our property stock anyway, mostly housing, certainly mostly housing stock, exhibits one or more code violations of the new IPMC, 20%. I think that's huge. My guess is it's not as big as Detroit, but it's no doubt huge. And whether it's huge compared to other cities or not, it's a big number. And I think it signals a real problem in Topeka. Perhaps, I think it's going too far to say it maybe signals a bit of a crisis, or at least getting close to it. Because I just think, how do you attract people to your city if you have that many homes that are exhibiting those kinds of problems? Because the IPMC, I think, is a good code, but the bar there is not extremely high. It's a property maintenance code and used in lots of places, but not a terribly high bar. So I think it suggests a problem. So I hope you'll look at that seriously and give thought to approving those 2 new code compliance officers, bringing us back to 10. I think the city is also going to ask you for additional funding to help the department buy new machinery to help with abatements. Abatements are when there's a code violation that doesn't involve the actual structure of the property, the house, but involves probably problems in the yard, like just lots of, I think the legal term is rubbish in the yard, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And so the city notifies someone that they're in violation of the code, and that person, that owner, doesn't comply, doesn't clean it up, and the city goes through a process where they go out to do the cleaning of that property. And there's a cost involved, but there's also a need for machinery to make that as efficient as possible so they can get on and do more. There are lots of them in Topeka. And apparently the current machinery is breaking down quite a bit, so they need to replace that. So I think that's a wise investment and something that we need. And then there's also a request, I think, for funding to help with demolitions. I recently heard that a fairly new survey for the city of Topeka concluded that there are approximately 400 properties, again, mostly residential, that need to come down. There are some, I think, on that list that maybe could be repurposed, and that would be a great thing. But unfortunately, most of them need to come down. That is unfortunate because they were probably well-built structures, possibly had some historical character about them. So it's probably a real loss for our city. But if they get so far, there's not much more you can do but bring them down. And if they're not brought down, they represent a real problem for neighborhoods. And you don't want to live next door to something like that. No one lives there. No one's taking care of it. It continues to dilapidate, to fall apart. Grass grows, and then sometimes people who aren't authorized to be there move in and cause all kinds of problems. So it's a serious problem. I think the city is saying that with the additional funding they're requesting, they might be able to bring down those 400 properties in 2 years. That would be amazing for the city of Topeka, because our past record is a much smaller amount. So I think there's some additional strategy involved there that doesn't actually involve the budget part of it, but they need the budget part of it too. So again, I'm here seeking the support of those things. I hope you'll look at those carefully. I think this is an important topic, and obviously budgets are about setting priorities, and that's why you're here tonight, obviously. I hope you'll also think about this in terms of a priority in a different sense, simply in kind of a management sense, in kind of a policy sense, because I think it is serious. I mean, how can we attract, how can we keep our current residents in Topeka, in the city of Topeka, if we continue to have this kind of problem, 20%? I don't think that's going to stay at 20%. Either we begin to address that problem and reduce that number, or it's likely to go up, because I think there's kind of a snowballing impact, because people, I'm just reading this Time magazine as I was sitting here tonight, and there's this quote that say, housing is where the majority of Americans keep most of their wealth. I mean, that's still true, and true right here in Topeka. And if the house next door to you is falling apart, you're likely, if you have the wherewithal, to pick up and go someplace else. And that may not be in the city of Topeka. It might be outside the city limits. But wherever, it's a serious problem. And then how do we get new people to move to our city, which is, I think, a serious problem. We need new residents. I mean, they bring vitality, they bring new wealth, they bring new jobs. But I think it's a real challenge. And how do we attract new businesses with this kind of a problem? So I hope you'll look at it, keep close track of it. You know, we have a new code, we have a new department, we have new staff. They all seem to be committed. We have, I think, kind of a new commitment on the part of the legal staff, which is kind of a new and sort of an amazing thing here. Unfortunately, our city attorney and our city prosecutor have gone on to other things, but I just visited just today with the new city prosecutor, and she, I think, has experience in this area. She seems very committed. So I think there's hope here that we can really do something, but I think it takes a leadership. Obviously, you had there from City Council, not just leadership. I think it takes kind of a public commitment so people hear this, so they think you're committed. So I think they feel like they can make an investment in Topeka, even in the historic part of Topeka. So I encourage you to do that. And again, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. And I'll make excuses for Councilman Shum. He's got a neighborhood meeting at 6:30, so thank you so much for being here. The next person who has signed up is Mary Jo Mastriana.
I was just looking over at the budgets, like zoo projects, and I was wondering how you decide which ones get the most money, and like bikeways. Do you decide how many people are interested in bikeways and then spend money on that, or do you spend money on bikeways hoping more people will be interested? But what I'm most concerned about is like public safety. Streets are there are still so many potholes, and a lot of streets, I'm with the ADA, American Disability Association. We meet once a month, and a lot of people that are in wheelchairs ride buses, and I find a lot of the streets don't have sidewalks, like Southwest 10th Street from Gage to Fairlawn. that is so hard to walk on it. It has never been widened. And I just think that some things that need to be looked at are things that are that affect more people, like public safety, zoo projects. Now, that is more of an interest for people. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm just saying I think we need to spend more money on things that affect more people. And I know that in East Topeka, what's that one place that keeps opening and closing? It's for school kids or after school. I don't know East Topeka. It's what?
Oh, Abbott Center?
Yeah, that keeps opening and closing and opening and closing. I don't live in that area, but I keep reading about it. And I just think more important things that affect kids also, there need to be more centers. But I was just looking at this, like I said, public safety. And then I'm always hearing every winter we get so much snow and they don't pave the school areas first, or they don't pave our area. But I just think you need to look at more the legalities and what is really needed first, than more of the interest. But like I said, the bus system, where a lot of people, for a while when I was having seizures, I had to ride the bus. And during times when there was a ton of snow, there would be no room to wait for the bus on the sidewalk, and you would have to wait right on the street. And then that fire station that originally was gonna open on 6th and Fairlawn, I don't know whatever happened to that, but I know they've been talking about closing the other two, but I know District 9 doesn't have one, so that's all. But I was thinking about it, and then the demolition program, and then what the other person was talking about, all these houses that are just torn up or their yards aren't mowed and stuff. Well, I see it written in the paper a lot, but then there's always some excuse, well, why they didn't have to do it, or there wasn't a notice, or they weren't home or something. So I think they need to carry out more rules and go through with what they say they will. So that's just my thought.
Thank you very much. Next is Earl Macintosh.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't have a prepared statement. Usually I like to, but this is informal. So I appreciate you here listening to the citizens here. I've lived in Topeka almost 20 years, and I'm proud to call Topeka my home, and I mean that. And I appreciate our law enforcement and our fire department that are here, and everybody who works for the city. I thank you for your service. But we've got real issues to talk about, and it's coming crunch time for business, and there's going to be people, no matter what happens, there's going to be people that aren't happy. I'm here as unofficially to represent homeowners of Topeka. I've been working with homeowners in Topeka for about 20 years, and I just want to say that the homeownership in Topeka is not in good shape at all. I want to remind those of you here that how many entities take out of our property taxes. I'm most concerned about my property taxes. The state takes money, the county, my city, the airport, Metro Airport, the Metro Transit, the public library, our school districts, and Washburn University. All these entities take from my property taxes. And I can tell you what is being taken from homeowners right now is unfair. It's far exceeded what is fair, okay? You know, there's been no city or country or anywhere that has taxed themselves into prosperity. It doesn't exist. There's nowhere you can point to that. Topeka has, when I said homeownership is not in good shape, and this is per the Topeka Capital Journal, we are in the top 10 cities in the country per capita for renters. We have 17 of our 21 neighborhoods not doing well at all. And I argue the cost of homeownership is driving that. We've got 8 entities that pull taxes out of our property taxes. Let me use an example. I would say, I don't know, the city, when you talk about raising taxes, you always like to use the $100,000 house with $34. It's nothing. But you don't even mention that you've got 7 other entities doing the same thing, causing all our taxes to go up. You know what I mean? So let's say 5 years ago, a $100,000 house pays $1,000 a month for their mortgage. Well, everybody here knows how much homeowner policies have risen significantly. The cost of living to rebuild houses. So the cost of their insurance go. Most people's escrow is where I'm getting at. So they put their money in the escrow, and people have no idea what happens after all these tax increases the following next year or the year after that. So homeowners gets a property insurance increase. They get, most of these entities are going to raise their taxes this year. They pay $1,000 a month. In 2016, that's going to be $1,200 to $1,500 a month increase for that homeowner, and that's just an educated guess. People can't afford to do that. People who own homes in this county are on the thinnest of margins. I hear the city says, hey, we're on a thin margin. We have to balance our books. We have to become debt-free. We need to raise taxes so we can pay off our debt. Well, you're destroying homeownership is what's going on. The rich, the elected, and the connected all live outside of the city of Topeka. And I'm not mad at anybody here. It's very frustrating that they live right outside this city and pay what I come up with about 50, I'm dropping things, I apologize. They pay about 54 meals less than me. So that's probably, depending on how much your house is worth, $1,000 to $2,000 less in taxes, and especially some of these really nicer homes that are outside Topeka. We're talking thousands of dollars each year that could be spent to help spread the risk for everybody. I mean, it's really disheartening. Now, I hear that, well, it's a state problem. Well, okay, the state needs to help you in annexing. I'm not smart enough to figure it out, but if the city council gets together and defies the state or be a little bit militant, hey, we've got these people, all our money's out, literally right outside the edge of Topeka, and they have the same benefits. They share the same benefits but pay thousands less than taxes. That's not fair. I wish we'd have somebody on this council to man up or woman up and just be the go person for homeowners. I mean, we're in deep trouble in this city. I can tell you, I have people like their husband or wife will pass away and they can't afford to stay in the house they've lived in for 50 years and they just want to die in there peacefully, but now they're broke. I have young people that buy houses all the time. They come in for a few years and have to sell it or move back in with their parents. I'm saying the cost of living has exceeded what people can pay. They cannot, the tax increases, I mean, there's 8 entities, I read them off, they all want more money. Well, the salaries in Topeka are down. They're not up. It can't keep pace with this cost of inflation. It's not fair. So, you know what, I am proud to be in Topeka, but what I'm telling you is the truth, and I feel everyone here knows it. And I feel that you guys care, but it's just disheartening and frustrating when people try to get ahead and they get kicked back, and it's because of the cost of living. Another thing that's really important to me is I'd like my city, I'm not talking about the poor, and I'm not talking about the rich, because I'm talking about the middle class, the people we want living in the city. I wish there was one program to get the cost of living down for the homeowners. They can't even afford to fix their houses up. They can't even afford to pay their deductibles on a homeowner claim because their margins are so thin. So what you do is when you raise our taxes, I'm not mad at anybody, but when you raise the franchise fees, which happened a couple years ago, and we had 2 electrical increases, all this cost of living with food, gas, insurance, electricity, cost of paying for your kids, just the cost of living is killing us. So I wish we'd have a cost of living person in the city to help fight to get the cost of living down for everybody. Because what you're taking is more than what we can afford. Salaries are down, taxes are up. Cost of living's up, salaries are down. This is the reality we live in America today, and it's going to get worse, and I feel everyone here knows it. Our money nationally is worthless. We printed up fake. It's causing our cost of living is exasperating. But I have some ideas, some more ideas. But we need to get the cost of living down for the middle class. Okay, the airport. We don't need the airport. I'm sure there's good people there, but I mean, what do they do for me? Do they get my cost of living down? Do they help me as a homeowner? All I see is the rich, elected, and the connected flying in and out of that place. I don't see anybody else flying out of the airport. What do they do for me? Can anybody answer that? I mean, really? I'm sure there's good people there. I know there are. But we have to make some tough decisions to save homeownership, because what we're doing now is causing people to move outside the city. I built a house in the city 7 years ago, and I would have never built my house in the city of Topeka, and I wouldn't recommend anybody build their house in the city of Topeka because of the cost of living. It's just unfair. Annexation, I would like somebody to stand up and scream at the top of their lungs. All right, let's talk about back taxes. I've been to several. I'm the only one in Shawnee County. I guess me and Joe. Standing up saying that we're in trouble. Back taxes. Last time I spoke, I was said that the county handles that. Well, we have millions and millions of dollars in back taxes that could be used to fill our coffers. I'd like somebody to stand up and just harass the county, collect those money, get that money. We need that money. And we may already are, I don't know. So I'm not trying to denigrate if you're doing it, but it doesn't sound like anybody's collecting those multi-million dollars of back taxes that are owed that could be used to fund a lot of things. Okay, I truly respect the law enforcement of this city. I really do. I lay down my life for them. I'm a retired Marine. I believe in honor, courage, and commitment. But what I've been told, and I don't know if this is true, our police budget is double the other cities our side. I want good law enforcement, but I want to get the bet. I want to not pay more than we need to. And I don't know if that's true. That's from somebody who keeps track of that. Our library, I know that's a county thing, and you point people to them, but their budget's double as well. I'd like maybe the city to work on have them lowering our mills for our property. They rake in double what Lenexa and Wichita and other cities them compared. That would be a way somebody could reach out to the board and say, listen, hey, we're having really problems. You can't do anything, but you could ask them to lower their mill levy to help homeowners in the city so we can keep a strong public library. You know what I mean? An audit. It's no disrespect. I like Jim. I think you're a fiscally person. I appreciate you being here. The best, I think the most fiscally sound person in the 20 years I've lived here. But nobody's perfect. I think we need a citywide audit and a surgical audit. Go down to the brass tacks, down to that department. We could all do better. Even homeowners, we can all do better. We have to tighten our budget, but I believe the city needs to go under an independent audit.
Excuse me, can I just make a question? I ask you a question
No, come on.
It's his time to present.
I'm almost finished.
Thanks, Mary Jo.
Okay. Just look out for homeowners. Everything we do, we're not in good shape. I say we're worse shape than the city is. And I just want you to keep that. I've come up with some pretty tough ideas, and I've been very direct, but I mean it with all due respect. I am very grateful we have good people serving the city. I really am. But we need to talk business, and we need to help homeowners of this city. I don't think it's fair that taxes, you guys can just pull taxes. I mean, we need a homeowner's bill of rights. I'll end with that. We need a homeowner's bill of rights to where, we have some, committee in the city stating that if certain things are met, that you guys would leave us alone. Don't stop taking money from us because we can't afford it anymore. So if any of the council would like to ask me any questions, I'd stand for questions, so I appreciate you being here listening to our concerns.
Anybody have any? Stick around. People
Okay,
may want
thank
to
you.
talk
I
with you
appreciate you.
afterward as
Thank you.
well. We have one more person who has signed up in advance. That's Theresa Miller.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank you for doing the job that you do, because it's not an easy job what you do, and you don't get to see. A lot of people don't understand what all you have to do, the things that you have to go out in the field, and all the work that you have to do before every Tuesday night that you come up in front of people. I'm aware because I have to go and do a lot of research in my area and try to come up there and tell you, I need this in my NIA. So first of all, why I'm here is, I had someone ask me, or was concerned, now that we voted down the Heartland Park in the bonds, what is gonna happen to our budget? Is this where the money's gonna come from, or what's gonna happen? So that's a big concern about your budget. The another thing that I'm really concerned is you have been listening to me on some of the street projects that I asked for that are very dangerous over on my side in North Topeka. But my main concern, and I've been trying for 3 or 4 years to get Tyler widened. That is so dangerous. It's very dangerous. You can't, like I said, you can't get a bus and you can't get a semi, which go past each other all the time. When they do, one of them has to get over a foot on the side of the road, and that's all I have for my constituents to walk on. So I hope in the future, if we look at it, roads, and that is one street that you do look at. The other thing I'm concerned at is, the gentleman talked about taxes and all the franchise fees and that. My husband and I are both disabled. We cannot work. We would love to go to work because we're driving each other crazy at home. But the problem is that for Social Security, we've gotten, in the last few years, one raise. Franchise fees, property tax, everything has raised beyond what we can afford. The last 2 weeks of the month, we have to decide on if we're gonna have gas for a car, or if what food we're gonna buy, because we don't have the funds. Because that's how much my house payments had to increase $100 a month because I couldn't pay my taxes on my house. So they took it upon themselves to raise my house payment another $100. So for this month, because our utilities and franchise fees and that have gone up so much over the winter, I have to choose my utilities to keep the level payment plan on, or my house payment. Guess what? Utilities rule out because I have to have my utilities. So I've got to figure out how to come up with my house payment. I'm not the only person in this town that way, but you guys are raising so much the fees on everything. I can't keep up with them personally. And I know there's a lot more people out there besides me that is having a problem with that. So I want you, and I know you're going to have to increase things, but I want you to look at it before you do and think about people like me that are struggling every day. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Is there anybody else who did not sign up who would like to share some comments with us? Deborah? Step up.
Oh, you know me by name.
I do.
Yes.
But you didn't put yes, so I didn't call on you.
That's always a good sign when your representative knows you by name. That's what I would learn in government. I'm Deborah Edwards. Hi, Mark. I stood opposed to the International Property Maintenance Code because I felt it was far too intrusive into individual rights. However, since it was passed, I feel like you need to enforce the damn thing, every jot and tittle. I've seen no changes. In fact, I believe some of the properties that are problems have become worse under this new code. So I wonder what did Mark and this committee waste hours and hours for to review and pass it when it's not being enforced. I would encourage and support Mark's position that you need to hire more code enforcement and you need to be stricter. I have a neighbor who tells me all he has to do is flirt with a code enforcement officer. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Lizzo? Lizone Graves.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, and staff. I didn't even know this meeting was going on, so I really wasn't prepared, but I was listening. My name is Lizone Graves, citizen of Topeka. Like Mark, I also chair one of the committees from the Neighborhood Task Force from the Neighborhood Summit. That was for the low and moderate income trade skills. This was brought about from the first and second Neighborhood Summit, where it was a gathering of people from across the city who took the little yellow stickies and put them on the wall and said, these are the ones that, and they counted them up, and those ones that had the priorities. And so I was under the understanding that whatever the people said were the priorities were those things that the city would start to try to see about focusing and targeting those resources on. And so, of course, code compliance was at the top of the list. I know that bikeways had made the list, and and low and moderate income skill training centers for low LMI individuals was either number 1 or number 2, depending on which one that you looked at. And so I've tried to work with as the chair for that LMI committee to not just say there's a problem, but to as someone who's been working in the community for 2 decades with the low-income population in employment training and skill training, I feel that there is still a need. And if that was a priority, I'm still trying to wait to see when is that priority going to get the type of budget consideration that code compliance got, as well as bikeways. Actually, LMI training was, I think, ranked higher than bikeways. And so I can be patient as long as they have already, I guess you said that there were a couple of code compliance persons that were hired and asking for a couple of more. There was monies expended on bikeways, and I'm not sure if there's any more that will be expended to that. But nothing has been dedicated for that other priority that not just I said, and not just minorities. Actually, most of the people who attended the neighborhood summits and the poverty conference, the conversation on poverty, both of which identified training for low-income persons and those formerly incarcerated persons and those who have other barriers to employment. Those were like number 1 and 2 across the summits, across the poverty conversations. But poverty, the word never really rises to much of a level. When I came in, I saw the presentation where they had mentioned that unemployment numbers was around 7.6 or something, and personally I don't think that that's a clear and correct indicator of the real unemployment in the city. And I think that there are people who know that I've come to the city and have identified populations that have gone way above and stayed above 16% for over a decade. I would hope that that is made a priority, and much of that is because if people are not working, then that potential for criminal elements could take root. Crime reduction is more than more police officers, bullets, and badges. It is also about the type of programming in the neighborhood that can start building people up. We know where the low-income neighborhoods are. And so if we just say that unemployment is at 6%, that does sound good. But when you know the real numbers, then I think that the conversation and decisions that will be made will not be as potential. They won't emit the potential that it has. So one of the things is within the budget, where does the priorities that were stated in the neighborhood summits and all these other poverty conversations, where I would like to see something dedicated from the city to whereas they will invest in, because we have been working with other entities in the city and the county and organizations such as Go Topeka and the Chamber, to say we have leveraged funds that we're going to put on for the LMI training centers. Nothing has come from the city. And finally, the reason that these are sort of important to me now, I know that this is a city budget, but city, there's also state policies too. And I'm not exactly sure if, I'm sure that you're probably aware of the new welfare reform policies that will take effect on July 1st, but I'm not exactly sure if you know the underpinnings in that. If now you are under 50 years old, you have to work 20 hours a week or be in a job training program to get those food stamps. Where's that job training program going to be? If you're receiving cash assistance, single parents, you have to be working 20 hours a week or in a job training program. Where is that training going to be? Most people don't even know where to look for the training at, but when you go to Kansas Work and see what is available to be chosen for federal funded training programs, you will find that many of the training programs are not going to be possible for the target population that we're talking about. We have people in our community that are free, not incarcerated, but have felonies. This has not been a very, the city and companies have not been very favorable of hiring people, individuals with felonies. In many instances, if they do want to hire people, the problem is that they don't have a skill. Not everybody's going to be in manufacturing or the healthcare. There's a lot of work that goes on in the neighborhoods every year through federal and state funds that deals with weatherization, which is really where the LMI training programs come from. So I don't think that unemployment will be reduced. I think that it will be increased because of new state welfare reform policies, because most of the people who will be impacted by the food stamps are not parents. These are single people. Now, of course, if you're over 50 years old, that's good. You're okay. So I didn't see anywhere where this is being addressed, and I just wanted to bring it to the forefront that if LMI training, helping those underserved, incarcerated people, the target populations of our city is really a priority. Out of a $200-some million budget, I would hope that you could find some way of saying we've put money into the walkways, into the code compliance, but we're also going to invest in this target population here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a quick question for you. I'm interested to know what your opinion is of whether or not this is an appropriate use of public money versus the nonprofit sector. How, and maybe they work together. How does that fit together in your mind?
Are CDBG funds included in this conversation? No?
I'd have to defer to the budget folks on that.
Well,
As
they're
far as
part
the
of that
overall budget?
overall city budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, yeah.
So,
General fund and
Yes.
CDBG.
these funds come specifically to a city, specifically earmarked to low and moderate income individuals, neighborhoods, and households. These are public funds that are not designated for the rich, affluent, or the wealthy. I think that there needs to be a better prioritization. HUD funds and their national objective is on creating economic opportunities and job training. And it throws the word economic development in there, not supporting programs that basically protect the pillars of poverty. So, yes, these funds here that the city are going to make a decision on should be better targeted for those type of programs that will move a person along and not make them comfortable in poverty. The same way as the welfare reform policies is not going to make people comfortable. But if there isn't any plan for a potential influx of people who are going to be needy in this city, I think that it's going to be a missed opportunity for you to strategize your budget around it, because the money's not going to come from Douglas County or from the state. It's going to be dealing with people who are residents right here in the city of Topeka.
Thanks.
Thank you. Others from the audience?
Karen, I forgot to mention one thing. Can I do that?
Real quick.
thing I forgot, I'm so sorry, my brain's not so great. I'm worried about these two fire stations that's gonna be closed. One in Oakland and one in North Topeka. I was raised in Oakland. It does not make me happy that this is even being mentioned. Then we hear that they want to build another one to replace those two. I was raised up, if it wasn't broken, don't fix it. We have two buildings there now. The issue to me is safety. And to me, by closing those two, yes, we have the one down off, 4th Street that can go over to Oakland. But there is so many obstacles for them to go through to get to Oakland. When you have one right there, that's less time that fire department can get to those people a lot quicker. So it's all about safety to me. I know that it sounds good, but I'm asking you, look somewhere else to cut. Do not cut those two stations out. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just real quickly get our department heads to stand up and introduce themselves, or the department representatives are here tonight, so that our guests know who you are, and if they have something particular they want to ask or share with you, that they can do it. Doug?
Doug River, Director of Administrative and Financial Services and Utilities.
Thank you.
Nick Miller, Administrative Judge. Craig Bailey, Speaker Fire. Mark Biswell, Brendan Wiley, Food.
Jackie Russell, Human Resources.
Scott Conklin, Executive Officer to Chief James Brown, Speaker First Department. Bill Feinender, Director of Planning.
Wendy Younger, City Clerk. Sonia Stiles, Director of Neighborhood Relations.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your comments. These were excellent comments. I heard everybody taking notes and so on. We do have another city hearing tomorrow morning at 11 right here. So if you sleep on it and want to come back with other items, or you want to let people know about coming back in the morning, please do that. There will be other opportunities to keep us, to send us comments. We also do have the poll in the back. The issue there, the way it's set up, and also online, the way that's set up is you can vote yes if there are certain areas that you think we should increase dollars for. And then if you think, even though you think all those areas are important, if you think we should not increase dollars in any of those areas, there's a chance to push that button. Correct, Nikki? So it gives you, in that very simple way, some options. Is there anything you want to add, Nikki, in terms of future public input?
Just again, our contact information is available, and we accept public comment either in these meetings or at any point throughout the budget process.
Thank you. Can you hang on just a second? I want to point out, too, that one of the commenters mentioned a variety of other public entities. On behalf of all of us as citizens and elected officials, often, call City Hall comes up is the first thing in mind, but it is possible to go to the County Commission and talk to them about things that you'd like to see them do, like collecting more taxes. It's possible to go to the Airport Authority board meetings and the library board meetings. Those are both taxing entities. The points are well taken about asking us to speak on your behalf, but we all can do that directly as well. And if you have any questions about how to reach them, Brenda's office at the city clerk's office or the city manager's office or ours with council can help people with contact information. Mary Jo, did you have something? Because we're going to wrap it up here.
One comment I wanted to make when the other person was speaking, it was about the airport. He was mentioning that the airport, I really disagree with that. Not everybody has a car to go all the way to Kansas City, and they have tried it so many times, and then they keep saying they don't have enough, that there aren't enough people, but they should also take into consideration, though, that Topeka is a small city, so don't expect to have so many people, you know, I think there were many people were taken off from boards to have it stay open, so I don't think they should have closed that. And it went to Chicago, and you could go anywhere to Chicago, so I think they should have kept that open.
Thank you. Going to wrap up. Council members, if you have any comments, then the mayor and the city manager and council comment?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank everybody for being here today, and especially thank you for all of those watching at home. I think that everybody here said how difficult of a job it is for all of us that sit here doing policy. And I would be remiss if I would state that I think it's important for all of us, before we even start having discussions about the budget, for us to understand what the role of a municipality is. I find it amazing that sometimes we sit down and we have some very impassionate conversations and we forget that the number one role of a municipality is to ensure that we have public safety, that we have infrastructure, that we have activities for quality of life and recreation, and in that vein, we should take a look at how we are then going to allocate those funds. A lot of times as policymakers, we are pulled in so many different directions because everybody has one priority that they would like to see served. But many times, those priorities do not fit into the mold of what a city is capable of doing. I will be really brief in my comments. I'll try my best because I know that time is of essence, but I did want to respond to certain things that I was taking notes. I want to congratulate the mayor and the city manager with regards to the efforts that they had in the summit. There were comments with regards to these were the priorities that occurred in the summit. Well, based on the summit, the first thing that occurred was that the IPMC was passed. That was a lot of work. And in order for us to pass the IPMC and get people trained, it takes a lot of time. So we never said that the IPMC was going to be passed and that we were going to see immediate changes. We promised that we were going to listen and we were going to react to those comments, and it has happened. With regards to the comments on our economy and poverty, I think that one of the great things that we have to focus on, my friends, is that we do have a problem with our properties right now, and we're seeing it now because we're having a poverty issue. One of the things that we have as a community is that when economic changes occur, it takes longer for them to hit the coast, and then they start coming in here. And we're starting to see the hit now. And we see it in issues with poverty, and we see it in foreclosures, and that results to us in issues with boarded houses and issues with code. So again, I'm not saying that it's gonna happen tomorrow, but I'm looking forward to those comments that you're saying of hiring more people for code. One of the comments that was made is having an independent audit. I would really like for you to talk with Mr. Gerber. We had a fabulous CAFR. The highest level of accountability from an external party was done to the city of Topeka. And many times we forget that we had remarkable scores on that report. And I think that it would be advantageous for everybody to hear a little bit from that. Finally, in my closing remarks, I'll say that poverty is an issue, and although we are trying to be the best stewards that we can, our sales tax dollars are being utilized to motivate economic development. 500,000, I'm not saying that it's being utilized correctly or that it's being used to the maximum capacity. We have a great opportunity occurring. On Wednesday, we're going to be hearing from 2 consultants that are going to tell us how, as a body of the Joint Economic Development, we should be looking at how to allocate those funds. I invite you to be at that meeting and to make your comments heard, because this is going to be a very impactful part for the development of our city. And with regards to our city, earmarking funds directly to the economic development portion, through the Economic and Development Committee, there are funds that are utilized from the alcohol sales tax that are going to Topeka Youth Project that are specifically earmarked to work with low-income populations on job training for the young. We're not perfect, but we are hearing your comments. So thank you, everybody, for everything that you've had to offer.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Johnson?
My only comment on the code compliance, like Councilwoman De La Isla said, we are making progress on that. Part of the struggle, though, is things that the city just doesn't know about. Some of the potholes that everyone sees, the city doesn't know exist. So if you see something, please report it. We have, there's a tool on the website, topeka.org, called E311 that allow you to make your own report. You can download an app for your smartphone. You can call the phone number. Please, if you see something that's a problem, tell the city. We can't fix something we don't know about, and sometimes it may be there and we just don't know. So please let us know, and then we'll engage and we'll do what we can to help you get it resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Clear.
I have gone around and talked to a lot of the department heads of the city, and I have voiced some of the concerns that I heard tonight, and I am very optimistic and very hopeful and very pleased that they are aware of this, and they want solutions as much as we do. So talk to them. I think you'll be pleased.
Thank you. Councilman Cohen. No, thank you. City Manager.
Well, thank you. I appreciate everybody's comments, and we will continue to work diligently and move forward.
All right. And Mayor, wrap us
Thank
up.
you. Good meeting.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. You don't say vote early, vote often, right? Just vote once, but get others to vote. Thank you again. We are adjourned.
I need your little piece of phone charger like you have. Just a battery? And I don't know that we got everybody to sign in, so then you charge it,